DC Wisdom Podcast, guys. Today with Denis Lambert, Denis Lambert, in English, founder and managing partner at Many Partners. We were talking prior to this pod, as we usually do. Had a very nice conversation about China, about Asia, about capital and its flows, and how China could have played its card better, most likely with the Jack Ma situation. But then he was telling me some very interesting points here. And for those that know me, I never really take a side to an argument. I'm more like gray and nuanced in my opinions. But we were saying basically that the Chinese government, being the leader of a country is the most complicated job on earth. And when you have someone taking a third of the country's economy and being kind of a revolutionary, it's a delicate subject, to say the least, and you need to manage these situations with white gloves, you know. So Denny, welcome to the pods. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about what you do nowadays?
Okay, so I'm Denis, I'm French. I've been living in Asia since 2007. I spent 12 years in China where I was doing like market entry and helping like entrepreneur and SMEs to enter Chinese market and North Asian markets though. So right before COVID, I moved to Vietnam, where I've been like working with some venture builder and helping like entrepreneur to grow their activity. So one aspect is to come to Asia for sure, but the other is like purely like how to create a business ideation, how to have a proper MVP, how to go for proof of concept, and then how to go to fundraising. And I'm also a researcher with a business school in Paris, where I study the decision making of venture capital firms and how they invest in startups.
Right. So prior to this call, Denis was telling me a bit more about Asia and the startup ecosystem there, how founders think differently from Westerners. From those that know me, you know that I spent some time in Hong Kong and in China, fell in love with the culture and so forth. Then he was telling me that entrepreneurs in China, they take way more risks and they don't have the same roadblocks as Westerners. You know, if I fail, I'm a failure. There it's more like, okay, it failed, what lessons can I derive out of this? You know, very stoic philosophy, which is the philosophy by choice to have, to succeed in startups. So that's really refreshing. I was telling Denis that, yeah, if you succeed and if you make it big a la Jack Ma, you will maybe be stopped by the government. Maybe that was somewhat of a false conception. I see still lots of things that are positive in China. Innovation on the
Great innovation.
Yeah, the supply chain, I would guess, I would call it that way. You know, the process, China is really good at ops and well, in my mind, in my humble opinion, from the data that I have, to optimize process, right? To make them more speedy, to get to the quality quicker rather than Westerners. Think us, we're better at creating stuff, ideating stuff, and then outsourcing it to China for it to optimize ops. Is that a real or false conception?
No, I think it's true. It's totally true. It was really my feeling when I moved to China in 2007 that they will be working hard on innovation and then they will be doing a lot of optimization on existing like patents or processes. But also, I would say in the past now 15 years, I've seen China coming with their own innovation. We can see like anything related to mobile payments, QR code, they were really advanced compared to other ones. They're still very advanced in many ways when it comes to digital things. AI, they have their own things which will be coming, and I'm pretty sure will be bigger than what we have now, maybe used in different contexts and for different purposes. So I will say like, yeah, it really depends on the different verticals of the economy. I have the feeling that in manufacturing, they are already very good, but still at the stage of optimizing what is existing. Digital, they are their own things and they are very much advanced. And I will say like biotechnology, they're also coming very much with a lot of patents. I think now, I mean, for quite a little while now, China have been registering more patents than the US. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that at some point they will take the lead in terms of innovation in most of the main verticals that we may think of. Yeah.
Yeah, patents. I've started reading patents lately. I think they're interesting, but From an entrepreneurial standpoint, I think they're pretty useless. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my property and don't touch it. Um, I would view as a blockchain-based system to which, okay, I had the idea, so you give me a couple of percentage points here, but now I need someone to execute on it. And if I
Mm.
don't have anyone to execute on it, then yeah, it's just an idea. So let it float around.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that?
No, it's a very good point. So here's more like about innovation, generally speaking. But yeah, it's not because you are depositing so many IP. We'll talk about chemical products like China is really depositing a lot of things related to chemicals. But what do you do with it, right? If you take like DuPont Numerals, they have like millions of patents and they don't know what to do with it. It's easy to create new formulas almost every day. So this is one thing. I agree with you that early stage is a different story. Do you really have an IP when you are early stage? Not so sure. Maybe you can have it when you do exit, but early stage, you don't really need an IP. You need more pure innovation, which is having ideas and pushing them and proving they are valid. IP can come later. I fully agree with that. And yeah, that's my view on that.
Because the capitalist system has paid off quite heftily since it starts. It's kind of the remnants of capital. Once you have a nice product, people pay you. Sometimes not the just value to your product. Sometimes it's them that aren't a bit less winning. Sometimes it's you. But I very much envision a future in which probably government pay an extra to companies apart from what they're already being paid in some kind of currency, that they would calculate the value added of a product in someone's life. So that's kind of far-fetched, but I want to throw that idea to you. What do you think? Like, let's say I sell you this. I have this Apple Watch, right? I paid the $400 for it, and then it keeps on adding value to my life, and there would be a government app that would calculate that and pay Apple for me a bit more than the value that it actually added. What would you think about that idea?
Okay, so you mean it sounds very interesting though. So what you mean will be like to create a kind of scoring or kind of virtual currency about like how much value it's creating for you more
Right.
than the value of it. I think it would be a great thing. Difficult to create a standard on that, but if it were possible, and there are things existing, especially when we talk about social impact and ESG, they are trying to do things, but it's not so standardized at the moment. But if you were having a standardized tool to value what is creating in your life, that would be great. I'll
Yeah,
probably
and
change
like
consumer
short
habits.
term, it would be some kind of app that you would just like they would quiz you and what added most value to your life, and you would take it.
Yeah,
In the future, it would be like literally biometrics, like
yeah,
that product generates that much value to my life. Defining value is quite hard, but not sure if you heard about the WorldCoin project. The founder of OpenAI, Sam Altman. It's a coin that will, well, it has value, right? That's one. Two, it's for UBI. So they assume that basically the AGI, general artificial intelligence, will create that much value that UBI will be a thing in like 10 to 15 years.
yeah.
And so they will start UBI actually. So paying people, let's start $10 per month, then 100. Eventually the mythical $2,000 a month, so that any humans can survive just by being here. What any thoughts about UBI? I mean, I think it's kind of a human right because we didn't choose to be born on this planet, right? So, and then when we struggle to make it in this financial system, and that's for all my hippies and communists out there, that's fine. That I do agree that they should have free money, especially for high performance folks like me. That is like, okay, I create so much value that I can give it to you, and I'm fine with that. What do you think about that?
So what's your question about like giving value away or
UBI.
yeah? So no, I mean once again, I think like creating more value to anyone on Earth should be everybody's purpose. In practice, is led there. Once again, I do believe that what we see in testing social impact, which is not so clear yet, but there are things there, could be a great thing. After on this specific case, I would need more information to really like analyze this case.
My brain is going in wild directions, but I foresee just like, in the prehistoric time, there was hunters as men that would bring back the food home to women for them to prepare it. I foresee a future in which there's hunters, aka high performance people generating wealth for most, and the folks that consume this, they would be harvested for their data, literally. And because they wouldn't do much, they would be like, let's say in the metaverse, just having fun all the time, and they would be harvested for their data. What do you think about that dystopia?
No, it's interesting topic. I do believe that I truly believe as an utopia and not a dystopia that everybody should have a minimum in life. It's not there, but I think it will come. Like maybe it will take 1 century, but that we all have like access to housing, food, good. I mean, when I say good food, like sustainable food, healthy food, that we have access to healthcare and then like entertainment, and that not everybody will have to work. So will we be harvesting some of the guys? The question is the ratio. Is it like one guy working hard for 10 people, or is it like one crazy guy like Elon Musk working super hard and 10 million people working, living behind that?
Right.
No.
Different ratio, but I do think it would be mostly AGIs, right? Working. So there would be humans that would merge with AGIs, and I think AGI would do most of the job until we can really engineers or brains. It's a weird reality when you think about it.
Okay, so sounds like Matrix, right? And let's see how it goes. It's a very interesting topic. It's also like, opening doors to very much like philosophical topic. Like, are we really conscious about what we do? Are we not just machines? Because like, if you can be connected to some other machines like Neuralink, then can maybe copy your spirit. I'm very curious about what will happen with that. But then we can be like on a hard drive somewhere and be like restored anywhere. So ask the questions like, are we really alive, or are we just like under kind of programs? For me, like when we talk about DNA, for me, DNA, it's very obvious. It's just a program, right? Somebody has been coding that thing. It's like there is an operating system and the coding as this way, as AI to create itself. So yeah, it's just like, let's see how it goes. Very curious about it. I don't think it will be like, it's always the same with science fiction. People, they think about something and we all like, oh, this is horrible, or no, it will never happen, and it's here. But then we go here, we happen to be in a future which is like much more complex and much more advanced than what we saw it will be. So
I
think it could be anything. I do think for sure that, and hope it will be that way, that we'll live in a world and we don't have to work so much, that workload can be reduced, and then like many things can be automated, and we have everything to do it now. It's just like people, at least like government, can't agree about it, but we have this capability to produce food, to produce cars, to produce whatever for everybody. It's just like the economic system is not well done for the level of advancement we have. And after, like, will it be Matrix? I don't know. I'm still a bit like dubious about the ability of AI to be like self-sustained, right? It's like still chatting with ChatGPT before we catch up for that call, and then as soon as you start to have complex questions, ChatGPT is totally lost, cannot really answer you. I like simple questions such as like, try to ask ChatGPT to have a different name, and name ChatGPT by system. He can't make it. It's very funny, You get this lost. But yes, but most likely, as soon as nobody is using AI and advanced like connection with Neuralink to control people, but still we are very unsure about what will be able to do that.
Yeah.
So still need to be awake. We still need to have like a proper regulation and try to be like nice people somehow.
Yeah.
That would be great. Otherwise, it can be a total nightmare where people like change your memories and I don't know. Like could be like, yeah.
When you talk like 20 years, you stretch your brain in like unknowns. It has some benefits, but like not do too much of it and talk shorter term. When listening to you, some people's utopia is some people's dystopia as well.
Yeah.
This economic system, I mean, the game is hard, right? But the thing I wrote today is that Elon Musk is not necessarily an unhappy man, you know? He just
No, no.
adapted to his reality. So
Mhm.
just like humans, there's sadomasochistic people. I'm somewhat part of that because I do Ironmans and stuff like that. We can adapt to love pain. We can adapt to
Yeah, yeah,
eat a piece of wood. I mean, that's pretty extreme and that's not scientifically possible, like especially on short term, but as humans, we can adapt to a lot of things. Now, that being said,
yeah.
the real question is like opportunity and this system. I think that when you start out and your brain is fresh and malleable, you don't have the same opportunities as other alphas like you and me, for example. Like we're adapted, right? We made it out of the crib. We're not like these vulnerable babies anymore. We're like killing machines, and it's hard to get there. Some people, when they don't have the same opportunities, they can get traumatized as well, and then it can take some time to untangle the mental muscle, right? And that's where it gets unfair. That's where the game is like unfair, right? When you see these people that have been in poverty for most of their lives and have struggled, right? Because poverty to me is not like having under like $200 per year. It's being unhappy about it. It's suffering.
Yeah,
That's my definition of poverty, you know, because there's people that are getting $500 a year and that are way more happier and way more adapted and that they reach their goals all the time. What can be their goal? It can be to sleep
yeah,
on the beach, you know, and drink coconut water, and if that's their goals, and fish and have a laugh at night, well,
yeah,
they are more intelligent and happier and less impoverished than
yeah.
the Wall Street guy that comes back to his home to see his wife cheat and has thoughts about killing himself, you know. Um,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, that were some thoughts. What what are your back thoughts on that one?
A fantastic topic. So definitely money and happiness are, I mean, sounds very easy things to say, but they are, as a matter of fact, different things. I think about the Ikigai, you know, they wrote books about this, and you have this island near Okinawa where people live very, very long and have very simple life, and they have very simple purpose, which is like keep a garden nice and things like that. And I agree with you. You know, something I find fantastic to illustrate what you say is like I live in Vietnam. Vietnam 20 years ago was the poorest country in the world, the second
Yeah.
poorest country in the world, was really poor. And you can still see that they come from very far away.
Yeah.
France is not the richest country in the world, but it's not so bad. And you know, there are some index where they compare like the lifespan
Yeah.
and the purchase power. So France is on the top when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also on the top on depression. You know, if you check the consumption of antidepressants, France is number one per inhabitant.
Mm.
You go to Vietnam, everybody's smart. They have tough life, really tough life. They don't have access to healthcare, but still they are happy. So it's like big question mark, like, yeah, it's not because we bring like consumption, better house, better whatever to them that they will be happier.
Yeah.
And I think it's a major concern. I think like in Sapiens from Ahari is talking about that there is a clear correlation between depression because people are losing purpose. You know, 200 years ago in Canada, in France, people were just struggling for food, right? So every day you're busy at what? You're busy at thinking what you're gonna eat at evening because you don't know what it will be. And then actually you're not depressed in that state. So yeah, it's a big question mark on us switching from being like animals to being like gods, which is like Blaise Pascal vision.
Right.
He likes to say we are stuck between, but this is where we are, and we're getting closer to somehow being gods. And when we say gods, it's being like free about doing whatever we want, but
Yeah.
then we don't know what we want, and that make us
Manifesting our
yeah,
reality in a
yeah,
magical way. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, I'm a Muay Thai guy, and yeah, these Muay Thai fighters just like hammering one another and smiling and playing at the same time is like a very interesting scene. Been to
yeah,
Paris and I've seen these stressed out people in the streets, you know,
yeah,
like telling me to fuck off, and their dog
yeah,
shitting all over the streets, you know. Very similar
yeah,
to Buenos Aires, by the way. Um, I think, you know, Yes, the first thought that comes to my mind is not just these cities and the French culture necessarily. It's the megapolis that were, yes, technically and economically it makes sense, but we've taken capitalists too far. When you're competing not against a tribe of 10, but 100 or 1,000 or 100,000, then life starts to suck, because you're always looking at the neighbor, and you're not even playing the same game as this neighbor, but because you're in this similar environment, your brain thinks that, oh, John is my direct competitor, and now John has a Porsche. What am I doing wrong? John's always laughing with his wife, and I see his Instagram picture, and he's always having fun, and me, I'm not having fun. These are all false conceptions.
Yeah.
Every human, they struggle, and that's really like a race to the bottom, right? When you constantly compare yourself. And guess what? John is doing the same thing with you. He sees that you're spending more time with your children's, and you're not even playing the same game. So I think that's the danger with the megapolis, and like evolving too quick there. I want to ask you though, like with Thailand, and I think that Bangkok is getting there like pretty quick on the startup ecosystem team. Like,
Booming.
yeah, like what's up in Bangkok? What are you seeing in Asia? If I would be like an investor in a VC, I'm fascinated with India. I'm fascinated with Africa and Latam in terms of investing opportunities before I would look at Canada or US. So what are we seeing in Asia that could be interesting for us VCs?
So very good question. It has changed a lot over the past years. So we see like a few trends. Let's say like before COVID, like Hong Kong was really at the top. Vietnam was very promising, and this is one of the reasons why I moved there. And then like Singapore was okay, Jakarta was okay, Indonesia was okay, Thailand was okay, but not so much. And now it's a bit different. So there were a few things, including COVID, that make people run away from Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is still a hot place, and I think we'll come back. But at the moment, for like headquarters for VC, where the VC and where, because usually they invest in the prime company, not in the subsidiary. So Singapore is really, really active at the moment. Really, really active. But in terms of exit, Hong Kong is still much bigger than Singapore. So it means that the money on the table is still bigger in Hong Kong. Vietnam was super hot place a few years ago. It's still a good place, but it's not growing as fast as expected. And I will not go into details because there are so many factors behind that. But what we see here, who is really the winner at the moment, is Jakarta. Jakarta is really, really booming in terms of ecosystem. And even though there are some cultural constraints, it seems to be really the place to be at the moment and to invest. Kuala Lumpur has been nice for quite a while and is growing steadily and is very good. And as you said, the last one is Bangkok. Bangkok is really booming, and it looks also as a good place to be. I see like the country has some stability issue for sure, but still as a foreigner being there in business is quite open. They change the regulation in foreign investment. I think it's easier for foreigners to own companies there when it was almost impossible to have the majority in the past. So it's great thing. And then they really improved Bangkok. And like 15 years ago, Bangkok, was a great place, but for living there was such a mess. So they really improved in terms of infrastructure. They really cleaned the city. So it's a nice place to be as well.
What are you seeing in crypto and Web3? Because we're seeing the whole debacle of Coinbase in the US. You and I talked, that being a government is a tough job. So it's not only China making mistakes. We're seeing these mistakes being done all over the world. US is making a big goddamn mistake with scaring off Coinbase. I don't think that they will go away, but they're just acting very much like clowns or people that do not know about tech, So, and Coinbase have been eyeing Dubai and Hong Kong. Are you seeing any crypto movement back there?
So I'm not a specialist of cryptocurrency, but I know a bit of blockchain, and I've been working a lot on decentralized finance and things like that. So I believe it's following a similar path. So for a long time, especially in crypto, like China was really against it. and it became an issue in Hong Kong. If you had a crypto business in Hong Kong, they will shut it down. So now they are changing. I think for the past few months, they are stepping back and they are reopening to cryptocurrencies and blockchain, I mean, digital currency and blockchain in Hong Kong. Singapore has been very advanced on it in terms of regulation, and you can really go there, and there are some special scheme that you can follow to do that. So I think it's a great place for this. And I would say for the rest, in Vietnam, I really don't see anything there. And same in Thailand, in Jakarta. I think those things are really active in Hong Kong and Singapore. But
So
Singapore being at the top at the moment. That's my feeling.
back in the 2000s, it was
And Japan as well. Japan is very active, but it's a bit nuts. Yeah.
okay, yeah. Japan, I think they have a big cultural problem to accept like foreign startups. I had the
Right.
emissary of startups for the Japanese government on my pod some time ago, and like their company registrations or applications were in Japanese, you know. So they're
Yeah.
just like completely out of the ballpark. This country is, yeah, it's just mismanaged, and well, most part of it. They have a huge population problem as well, humongous debt, you know, but so much potential. My question was, you know, I'm not sure if you know Laurent Timmermans. I've seen you connected with him on LinkedIn. He's a friend that I made in Hong Kong. My company's actually registered there with him. But there's various French folks and Westerners that have made the move to decided to go to Asia, whatever part of Asia, because there was huge opportunities back then. We all read these books of I forgot who it was. Was it Credit Suisse or whoever, the traders that made fortunes trading in Asia, the Japanese stock market, and so forth, and you know the tiger market back in these days. Considering that, do you think it was a good move back in the days for you to decide that, okay, I'm going to go to Asia, I'm going to make a career there? Like, what was the thesis behind that decision? Was it financial? Was it to have a culture shock and have a different life? And reflecting to up to this day, do you think it was a good decision? Did you achieve your goals basically?
Very good question. So I moved there for my girlfriend at the time in 2007. And my plan was to live happily in Paris, but not so happy, to be honest, at the end of the day, when I see it retrospectively. But no, the idea was really to move my girlfriend, to follow my girlfriend and stay 1 year in Shanghai. But I spent 12 years in Shanghai. I spent a few years with a girlfriend who went back to Europe before me, though. Everybody thought I was crazy when I moved. I was doing like M&A for KPMG before in Paris before I moved to Shanghai, and people were like, "You crazy? What you gonna do there?" But actually, it was the best time. And two things, like one had the chance to see like China growing, you know, like US was growing in the 1950s, was quite a unique thing, and I'm very thankful for having been there and witnessed that. And from career perspective, yeah, it really rocked my career. You know, in Paris, it's based on your business school and what you do, and then you have 2 promotions in your life, and that's it. When you go to Asia, it's booming, and you have promotion like every 6 months. So yeah, definitely, you know, I become CFO, I was like 29. I become CEO, I was like 32, and then I opened my own company. And so yeah, it's probably US, Canada, I'm less familiar, but US is very dynamic. But still, like France is not that dynamic for sure, at least not in the past 20 years. So yeah, it was definitely the good move. And once again, we mentioned Hong Kong, we mentioned Singapore. If you take a globe and you put Hong Kong in the center or Singapore in the center, you will see that actually half of the world is around you, right? So yeah, I think it's still the future compared to Europe at least. And then yeah, there's no way I go back to Europe for sure. Yeah. I will stay in Asia, and because there is so much growth to go. I mean, China is still a huge market. You mentioned about Japan. Japan is changing. They're trying to open. It's still a huge economy. Indonesia is like 300 million. It's booming. India, we didn't mention about India, but India is definitely the next China. It will be different for many reasons, but
the next US, in my opinion. Well, I mean, it will
the
take
next
time.
US, it will take time, but the past 15 years, 16 years in Asia, you know, it was not really, I was looking at India and was not really moving. But I think for the past 2, 3 years, something is happening. I feel that now it's happening. It's really like boiling and it's growing very quickly, much faster than before. And I think India is a good time to go there. Yeah.
And that was bold to say the next US because my brain like revisited the idea and I was like, not so quick. I think economically they're gonna potentially be more, but what if we talk about like what I suggested when we started this pod, this currency paying you off on your good actions. US is so unique and innovation
Yeah.
happens so much in there, and Indian culture still has some flaws, but they are somewhat checking the US. So it's kind of hard to compete against the leader of the pack, when they're constantly
Yeah.
advancing at a rapid pace. But yeah, when people say that China will overtake US, but India, I do think, yeah, they have a chance. And I think the future is like one world, everyone united. I don't think there'll be countries as per se. And then let's say in 30 years, I do think we're going to be one. Then there's going to be space colonies and so forth. So things are
Yeah.
advancing pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
beginning.
it's the expat life in your time, it was called that, expats. Like me, it's more like digital nomads in my
Yeah.
millennial or Gen Z or whatever you want to call this 93 generation. So it's nomad and it's a fun life. Yes, sometimes
Yeah.
you're isolated, but me personally, I'm like a hybrid introvert extrovert. I have lots of fun by myself. Yesterday we met a random guy in the streets. We started talking. He was think he's gonna become a friend, and then a part of me is like, I'm okay by myself. I don't need friends, and I have my little routines. I go play basket by myself. I go run by myself. But it's a fun little life. And obviously, my
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
question for you is like, financially, your money is like worth 3 or 4 or 5x more than when you win USD or euros and you spend it in your current country. So you're pretty much like a 1%er and you live the life of a king when you live in other countries.
Exactly. Yeah, I cannot agree more than on all the things you say. I used to build this consulting firm in China and have 150 people. And then for me, like, I believe that we're not designed to work with so many people. I believe that we're not designed to work in big corporation. I believe that we are designed to be like entrepreneur with our own small activity, that we should have like flat management, and then you work with 2, 3 people more if you feel comfortable, but really up to people. And yes, and digital nomad is the way I'm trying to live nowadays. I'm in France at the moment, but also based in Vietnam. And we talk about Thailand. Thailand is fantastic for digital nomad. I go to Chiang Mai from time to time to stay there, focus on my work, and yeah, it's a fantastic life. And I will never go back to a big corporate job. Yeah.
Dennis, thank you so much for today, the insights that you shared. Where can people find out more about you?
They can check my LinkedIn. They can contact me if they like. I usually answer all my messages on LinkedIn. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. That was